Okay, we've now switched to our YouTube live broadcast or coverage, and I hereby call this meeting to order. We begin this gathering by acknowledging the land on which we gather is the traditional territory of the Haudenosaunee and the Anishinaabe peoples, many of whom continue to live and work here today. This territory is covered by the Upper Canada Treaties and is within the land protected by the Dish with One Spoon Wampum Agreement. Today, this gathering place is home to many First Nations, Métis, and Inuit peoples. Acknowledging this reminds us that our great standard of living is directly related to the resources and friendship of the Indigenous people. So welcome to the hearing of the Committee of Adjustment for the City of St. Catharines. Everyone present will be given an opportunity to comment on the applications being heard. Some of you will be watching, I guess, passively through YouTube. Others will have registered to be actively involved in this Zoom hearing. There are two major types of applications to the committee. One type is an application for consent and severance. The second is applications for minor variances to municipal zoning bylaw requirements. Evidence may be required to be given under oath if deemed necessary. Please address all your comments and questions through the chair. I will be the chair this evening. Copies of the decisions will be mailed to the applicant and any other person who appeared before the committee or filed a written request to receive a notice of decision. Pursuant to the More Homes Built Faster Act, and in the matter of consent applications, the applicant, the minister, or a specified person or public body that has an interest in the matter has the right to appeal either the decision itself or the conditions of consent to the Ontario Land Tribunal within 20 days of the mailing of the decision. Minor variance decisions may also be appealed. However, they must be made within 20 days of the making of the decision, which is what we're doing this evening, at a cost. The cost of an appeal is $400, or it was, might still be. Are there any amendments or additions to the agenda?
There are not.
There are not. May we have a motion to approve the agenda from a committee member, please? Carrie Leask, thank you. May we have a motion to adopt the minutes of the last meeting? Tom, thank you. Does any member of this panel have a conflict of interest in any of the applications to be considered at this meeting or the previous hearing if they were not in attendance? I do not. Carrie Leask?
I am recusing myself from 378 Niagara as there is a long-term familial acquaintance that lives in close proximity to the subject property.
Okay, thank you. So when we get to that point in the agenda, Kerry will remove himself from the meeting and will be invited back after that application is reviewed and dealt with. Are there any requests for withdrawal or adjournment?
We do. We have a request with respect to 189 Lockhart Drive. It was for amendment of a condition of decision, and the staff has requested a deferral of up to 3 months to determine the full impact of the requested amendment to the condition.
Okay. Does the applicant have any thing to add to the staff's proposal?
We have the agent, Greg.
Interchangeable
Greg,
agent.
you're on mute, Greg. Can you unmute him?
Clearly, Greg has a touch screen.
Okay.
There you are.
There you go, Greg.
Yep. Yes, I represent the owners of the property that is before you. We support the request by the staff. The only thing that we would like to add is that it be done in a more timely fashion. 3 months seems a bit extreme. We'd like to see a time put to it between 30 and 60 days.
Well, ultimately, the 3 months is, an up to date. If you get your application in and meet the schedule for the following hearing, that's up. If you can do it quicker, that's up to you. So if you want us to tie your hands to 60 days, that's great. But the 3 months doesn't mean you have to wait for 3 months.
The 3-month request is a result of a staff request. We just want it moved up, that's all.
Again, you can if you're prepared to do it, then you can do it as soon as possible. So
It is up
this-
to, the staff did request up to
Okay.
3 months, not
Yeah.
that it would take the full 3 months.
right.
We just don't want to have to come back to committee.
Okay, as
So,
long as it's done in a timely fashion, we're quite
What's wrong with,
satisfied with that.
Carrie?
no, I just wondered what was wrong with coming back to us. Are we not-
I believe we do have, Jim is on. Jim, did you want to speak to that?
Sure, I can just confirm that we will be looking at this as soon as possible and try to do it in a timely manner. We just felt among staff that just in case it took a little longer, because we have to get input from other departments, that the 3 months might be a better fit, but we'll certainly shoot to do it sooner than that.
Now, for example, just for my clarification, if we had said 30 days and it didn't happen in 30 days, that would force the applicant to reapply and pay a fee. Is that correct?
That is not, because it is an amendment to a condition of a decision you already approved.
Okay. Anyway, so ultimately, if the applicant, so if it's understood by the applicant's agent that this is not a hard number that you have to sit around, that they're going to just use this opportunity to kill time over 3 months. If when it's ready, but it will be ready certainly within 3 months. Is that acceptable, or to you?
That's acceptable.
Great, thank you. Any questions from the committee members? If not, I'd like to invite a member to make a motion. Propose a motion. David, thanks for volunteering.
I'd like to move that the request for an amendment to condition 4 of application E5522 SC be deferred for up to 3 months.
All those in favor of the motion? Great, thank you to the applicant. Your deferral has been approved, and we'll see you hopefully before 3 months.
Thank you.
Okay, so we are going to start our intact list of agenda items. Item number 1 on our agenda is regarding the address 69 Chestnut Street. And this is to facilitate this request for minor variances is to facilitate the construction of a new accessory dwelling unit, which is to be located in the basement of the subject property. These are the not so unusual requests are to consider varying the maximum floor area and the maximum interior floor area percentage relative to the primary unit. And we have received a technical report from the city staff, which recommends approval. So at this time, I would like to invite Juan or Courtney to speak to the application. If there's anything more you wish us to know.
No, I don't think so. I think we got the report from staff and we obviously support that.
Excellent. That seems like a very reasonable conclusion. Are there any questions? There are no registered speakers. No comments were received. Are there any questions of the committee members to the applicant
No,
for clarification? No? Great. This is where we,
General intent of the official plan and zoning bylaw.
Excuse
thank
me.
you.
Uh,
Yes,
Greg, I'm sorry, Mr. Chair, it was A91, Tom. I believe you read A97.
I did, yes. Sorry. A9123.
Thank you. That's that has been amended. And all those, if there's no further discussion, all those in favor, show of hands. Great. To the applicant, your application has been approved unanimously,
Thank you.
which allows us to move on to the second item file on our agenda, which is at the address of 18 Admiral Road. There, if I look past my screens, we have an application to facilitate for minor variance, a minor variance, to facilitate the construction of a new shed in the rear yard of the subject property. This is an issue of maximum lot coverage for accessory structures. The bylaw outlines 10% as being the maximum. With this proposed new shed, that would put this property at 16%. And as a result, staff recommendation is for denial. And that is the report that we, the committee, have read and reviewed. So at this time, I would like the applicant's agent, Bob, to fill us in on anything further we should know.
Hi. I sent you some pictures of my backyard and the previous variance that I applied for when we built a garage, and we were awarded 14.5%. Now, the last time that we spoke, you told us that we were at 11% with everything in the backyard. The pergola that you guys are calling that, it's not made of wood. It's a gazebo that was bought from Walmart, and it's metal. We can move it anywhere or take it down.
There for shade.
It's there for shade for me, because I'm disabled. I'm in a wheelchair, so for me to hover around my backyard, this is what is suitable for me.
So I recall, I'm sure that the committee member recalls your initial or your last application, and we had a fair bit of discussion about how you could proceed, and part of it included you talking to the city about trying to, I think the previous referral by the city was for denial. So here we are again. There seems to have been no compromise. And I understand.
Well, we're willing to take down the gazebo if that's what it's going to take, but
well,
I prefer to leave it up for shade for myself. But
no, I understood. So ultimately, that would reduce the lot coverage.
Right.
I would just like to invite the city planner for the file, Dasha, to or Claire, if Claire is participating in this file, just to fill us in on this, the idea that the fact that we have an impervious roof structure, even though it's a prefabricated metal structure, that is in fact, we assume, contributing to the 16%. And if that was removed, it would reduce the coverage by some percentage. Has the city investigated whether or not the removal of that one structure, the gazebo, would reduce the lot coverage to a satisfactory percentage that would allow staff to recommend approval in their report?
well, the last time that we spoke,
Well,
you said,
I'm asking specifically the city planner at this point. So we'll wait to see what we hear from them. Claire.
Thank you, Chair. With regard to the pergola, it is considered under our zoning bylaw an accessory structure, and I had been advised by building staff that it would warrant a building permit to be erected. Therefore, it is counted under our accessory structure total lot coverage. Without the garage addition and the pergola, the previously existing accessory structures cover closer to approximately 11%, still exceeding the city's bylaw of 10% lot coverage. Staff can't not speculate whether we would consider a lower until we review an application. But it would still exceed our 10% lot coverage under the city's zoning bylaw.
Okay, thank you. Them's the facts. So to the applicant, just hold on. I can see you're eager to contribute. I would like to invite any of the committee members to ask any questions they may have. Carrie Leask.
I'm interested in the reference that's emboldened in yellow on our agenda. And specifically, there is a reference to the previous minor variance application that was successful, I take it, that
Right.
Allowed for 14.5% coverage. Could somebody, and I'm assuming that might be Claire, run that out for our edification in terms of why it no longer applies as legal non-conforming?
Through the chair to the committee member, Lise. That minor variance was approved, I believe, in 2005. Therefore, when the new comprehensive zoning bylaw in 2013 was adopted, it null and void all previous minor variance applications.
Oh, nice.
So automatically that put them offside in relation to the bylaw, which was 10%. Is that correct?
I believe Charlotte McEwen would be able to expand on this.
Thanks, Claire. Yep, through the chair. So what we're saying here is that in 2005, this variance would have been granted for 14.5%. In 2013, when the new bylaw came in, there actually was a transition period for those previous variances to be used, but it has now elapsed by several years. So that 14.5% is not the as of right coverage on this property anymore. If that 11% we're talking about, that most of the structures that appear to have been legally constructed make up, that 11% may be the as of right coverage because that's what was existing in 2013, but they don't get to just go up to 14.5. I hope that's a little clearer. The 14.5 is not permitted just because it was received that time in 2005.
Thank you. Carrie? My take on it is we are the Committee of Adjustment. We have this application before us. They wouldn't be before us if they met the zoning bylaw. So they're over the zoning bylaw and they're here. It's a matter of, will the committee consider granting 16% lot coverage in a motion as being a minor variance, or will the committee suggest that there is a condition that we'll grant the minor variance with the removal of the pergola, not knowing exactly what percent of coverage will be, but it's a step in reducing the existing coverage from 16 to something, which is going to be more than 10%. So I see that as being a fairly clear path forward for a motion. But if we're not ready to make a motion, I'm still inviting committee members to ask any questions they have for clarity. Otherwise, I would, Carrie?
Further, and I know Claire spoke to this, but is it in fact true that a pergola of the nature of which we're talking does require a building permit?
Through the chair to the committee member, I have been advised by building that anything exceeding 10 square meters warrants a building permit.
So that means 90% of the people that have bought those are probably offside on that one.
Right.
Yeah,
Well,
exactly.
That may be the case. That may be the case. David Ringler, you had your hand up for a question.
If we go back to the 2013, 14.5%, can somebody tell me what that included? Did it include the shed and or the pergola?
Charlotte seems to have a memory about this.
Through the chair to the committee member, I don't know exactly what it included. It would have been whatever was on the drawing at the time in 2005 when that percent was permitted. And I don't know if that percent was tied to very specific buildings or was just sort of a blanket approval at the time. It's when that was essentially lapsed through the new zoning bylaw that they kind of were frozen in time with whatever they had. And what the best we know of is that they had the structures that are on site now, except for the pergola and that garage extension. That's to the best of our knowledge right now in that 11%.
I think I'd like to allow the applicants, since they are intimately familiar with what was there when, to answer the question. Do you recall whether the pergola was part of that calculation and or garage addition?
Oh, we just bought the gazebo 3 years ago.
Okay. So
Because I just recently, I lost my leg 5 years ago, and being rehabilitated and everything else, we have no trees or nothing on the property, so that's my only meaning of shade.
Yep.
So
understood. Thank
Being
you.
on ODSP, we have no money.
Yep. No, this is all ultimately, again, Carrie, I'll get to you in a second. I still come back to the fact that we have an application before us. We know exactly what they're asking for. We know we have an option that if we grant it, a condition can be to remove the pergola. So within that, I really do think we can make a decision. Carrie?
So just to be clear, in our conversation, when one uses the word pergola, it's interchangeable with gazebo. Is that correct?
Yes. It's a roof structure supported by the ground, period.
Right. So
And actually, in this case, all it needs to know, they are accessory structures. No matter what it's called.
I thought it was pertinent to distinguish that we are talking
No,
two separate things.
Oh. sure. But yes, it's an accessory structure ultimately, which is what they're counting. Whether it's wood, steel, pergola, gazebo. So
And if I remember correctly, this is the file, and I will apologize for not remembering, but I don't want to read through the file right now. There was a reference to the garage extension maybe being constructed without permission, but this is sort of a bit of a forgiveness procedure now. Is this the right file?
I recall that, yes, the two were tied together. So it feels like if you want to keep your garage addition, then you got to give up the pergola. Or if you want to keep the pergola, then you might have to give up the garage addition. Either way, if there's too much coverage, one of the things that are contributing to the coverage should go. Was what staff is outlining for it. Yes, Carrie?
Shall I make a motion?
That's what I'm looking for. As long as we are, as the committee, Tom?
Yeah, so if we make a motion, it's implied that a building permit would be required, right? We don't need to add that as a condition.
We should clarify, and we could highlight that the report suggests that. So, but it's in the report, and our motion is with respect to what is required by the report. So it wouldn't hurt to highlight it in the motion, but it won't get missed, I don't think. It's on the radar. So Carrie, did you want to continue?
I will do that. Following consideration of all written and oral presentations, I move that variance number A0623, as presented in the notice of hearing, be approved, save and accept that the pergola / gazebo be removed, as the variance is minor in nature, appropriate and desirable for the use of the land, and is in keeping with the general intent of the official plan and zoning bylaw.
Thank you. Is there any further discussion among the committee members? Tom?
I don't understand why we need to make that condition. I mean, I certainly understand staff's position and why they have to recommend denial. And it is Meriton, which is known for drainage issues, but we're talking about a property that's had a shed in some form for at least 20 years. and you look back on Google Maps for the last 16 years of history, there's been a progressive beautification of this property. So I just personally don't feel it's in the best interest of the city or the area or the applicant to have to tear down a gazebo just to make a number. There's been no evidence of any drainage issues. This was identified as a complaint, just because they built the shed, not with any evidence or a complaint related to drainage issues. So, I mean, I would have made a motion just to approve it as is.
Okay, well, that's part of the opportunity to discuss our take on this. We are just talking among ourselves about a motion that's on the table. So there's an indication there of one approach to viewing this motion, and ultimately we're going to reflect what we think about it with how we vote. If there's no further discussion, David.
I'd just add that we did receive comments from Karen Smith that spoke to her concern about the shed being an increase to the garage and there being too much in the backyard and not enough, if any, green space.
Thank you for noting that. Yes, we have received that correspondence. At this point, I would like to ask those who are voting in favor of the motion to raise their hands. Those opposed? Tom, you were just right on the tail. Are you voting in favor of?
What's the next step? I mean, it passes anyway, right? So that's the end of it.
It is, but you'll be officially on notice with your vote if you're against it. So please clarify which way you're voting.
All right, I will vote against the motion.
Okay, so it's 4 in favor, 1 against. So to the applicant, well, your application has been approved with a condition that the gazebo / pergola be removed. So hopefully it's one of those things that can be disassembled and sold, and hopefully a big umbrella is in your future to provide the shade that you require. And we hope you have continued enjoyment of your backyard. So thank you so much for participating. We're going to move on to item number 3 in our agenda, and that is 7 Beach Street.
Thanks very much.
Thank you. 7 Beach Street is there are a number of variances requested to accommodate a 2nd-story addition to an existing 1-story building. And this is to facilitate an apartment building containing 6 units with a residential convenience use at grade. There are 6 associated minor variants, all the usual things, setbacks. Well, everything's in here: setbacks, lot frontage, parking spaces, more setbacks, density, and leasable floor area. So those are all the 6 variances that we are considering in our review this evening, and those are the 6 variances that the city was reviewing in their report, where they recommended approval of variances 1 through 5, and they're recommending denial of variance 6. Be denied as follows: an increase in the maximum permitted gross leasable area of all residential convenience use from 5% of the total residential gross area to 13.7. So a denial of variance number 6 is part of the staff recommendation. We have received no comments. There are no scheduled speakers. There is an agent present on this application. Stephen, did you want to let us know what you think?
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members of the committee. Thank you for the opportunity to be with you tonight. I do want to make a presentation, if I may. Mr. Gill, the owner of the property, is with me on, as well as Mr. Wayne Philbrick, the contractor who will be building this development when approved. I will be making this presentation for you, and I'm certainly able to answer any questions that the committee may have. And we're thankful for the report that the staff have prepared. We recognize that given an existing use in this existing location, I think the comment you made is that the owner has made changes to the site in order to facilitate the introduction of the 4 additional units, but there still remains one issue that is outstanding that we do wish to speak to. If I might, so Michael has owned this, Mr. Gill, excuse me, has owned this property since 2006. When he purchased the property in 2006, there were 2 residential units and a commercial unit at the front on the main level. The owner's clear knowledge of what he purchased versus the city staff's information in their various files differ somewhat with respect to the uses that were there, when they were located, when they were there, et cetera, which has created a bit of a question related to the final variance. And I'll discuss that point later as we go through this. If I might, could I share my screen?
Well,
No,
that does go against our protocol.
Echo.
Did you submit your presentation to the staff?
Oh, no, I didn't. I could do that instantly.
Well, how about you invite me and you're gonna email it to somebody?
Yeah, I'd email it to Jane.
Well, ultimately, Jane's probably not at the helm of the technology board. So we have in the past allowed presenters to carefully make presentations off of their computer. Jane, are we prepared to do that this evening?
Yeah, okay. Can we? All right, Stephen.
Oh, and I'm terrible because the next application is in the same position.
Okay, Stephen, the rule is that you have to send it to us in advance. We don't allow people to share the screens. But we will allow it today, but it won't happen again, okay?
Yes, and I intended to send it. I just got consumed by preparing for tonight's meeting. I'm sorry.
So the powers that be who are in control of our Zoom meeting this evening will let us know when you have been granted.
It's good to go, Stephen.
Okay. Stephen, make sure the first thing we see is your presentation.
I hope so.
We hope so. It is.
Anybody there?
And everyone can see that?
Yes.
I can see it. Yes.
Roger.
So we're all aware of the provincial, regional, and cities' desire to increase the number of residential units available in the province and in the city. And what we have here tonight is an opportunity to add 4 residential units that will be modestly priced and located in an excellent position to take advantage of the reduced size of the units and the access of those units and the residents to the city. As you can see here, the site is located 50 meters from Ontario Street, and north of the property, you can see on 10 Pleasant is the property that has been redeveloped is going to be redeveloped into a 9-story apartment building, 14 townhouses, and 365 units in total. Ontario Street, as you're aware, is a gateway to the city from the QEW and leads directly downtown. It's a major commercial street and transportation, arterial, and a transit corridor. 7 Beach, this building that you see has two apartments on the main floor and a convenience commercial space at the front of the building, and you can see the door to that commercial space. And the parking is in the side yard to the west. The site, as you see here, is in a mixed-use area. Mixed-use area. I'm sorry, I can see someone has raised their hand. I'm sorry. And immediately east of the property, you can see three beach is a vacant property that is presently used for outside storage. Next to that, to the west, is the daycare center. Many years ago, a watering hole for many of us. And to the east of the property, you can see the renovated dwelling to the east. It's an apartment building with its parking immediately adjacent to the eastern wall of the subject property. As you move to the east, the residences, some of them are apartments, and the neighborhood opens up to additional single-family dwellings as you move further east past Mackenzie Park. Opposite the property on the south side of Beach, you can see the red brick office building in the rear and its parking, which is immediately adjacent to to Beach Street and across the road from the subject property. And again, opposite the property is a parking area for the apartment building, which again is to the right, which you see here. Clearly, this is a mixed-use area forming the edge between the Ontario Street transportation route and commercial area and the single detached neighborhood further east beyond Mackenzie Park. This site provides a wonderful opportunity for additional moderately priced accommodations with the opportunity for tenants without cars to live in a convenient location with easy access to transit. What you have here is the site plan that was submitted in term with the application, and you can see the various variances identified and circled in red.
And many of those just represent the existing building footprint.
Absolutely. They represent the existing building footprint, and the owner is proposing not to change the footprint, but to build on top of the building and add the 4 units there. What is interesting, what we have done, there is a front yard, which is really in line with the front yard of the houses to the east, but it provides landscaped open space, and the owner is proposing to remove some of the asphalt in order to increase the landscaped area in the back. The landscaped area is already being used as a space for the 2 tenants in place to barbecue, etc. We have added, the owner is adding an enclosed bicycle storage space in order to facilitate, if at all possible, the use of bicycles by the existing tenants and the future tenants in the building. In looking at the variances that maybe I'll go on to the next slide. This is the floor plan of the first floor. You can see the 2 residential units, which are, while they're on here in metric, I'll tell you they're 500 and 668 square feet in total in size. Small, moderately priced units. Those units have been there since the property owner purchased the property in 2006. And again, the convenience commercial space at the front is approximately 404 square feet. Very small commercial space, but that there's been no change to this first floor since 2006 when the owner purchased the property.
Are you suggesting that what was what is shown there as an office space is continued to be office?
It's been commercial and not commercial, is moved in and out. At the present time, it is not used.
Yeah, I live a couple of blocks away from here for the last 21 years, and I've seen it go from an obvious commercial use to having the larger windows reduced to a very residential size window and a solid door put on there. I always assumed it was being used as a residential use behind that facade, but you're suggesting this plan that is still currently used as an office. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, and the floor space as it presently, as is shown here, is how the floor space exists today.
Okay.
And the second floor, you can see here, again, 4 units, all 400 plus square feet in size, 437, 432 square feet, small, modest units. Really, when I think about it and trying to find units for the people I deal with from time to time, units like this would be a godsend. Let's see, where are we? So here we are. So in dealing with the variances that have been requested and proposed, staff have dealt with them in clusters, and frankly, we agree with staff's approach to each of the variances except the final variance number 6.
Of course, they approved the first 2. You're going to agree with those.
Yeah, I agree with all of them. And frankly, the maximum density is such a microscopic increase. It provides for the 1 additional unit. And again, we feel and agree with staff that it is a minor increase in density and should be considered covered by the variance provision. Now, the question with respect to the maximum floor area, gross floor area of the convenience commercial. I'll try to explain this as best I can. The official plan in the zoning bylaw is clear, and the staff are clear in their approach to that. I'm not taking issue with the staff's approach, but I do think there are issues that I'd like the committee to consider and potentially approve the variance being requested. So the zoning bylaw talks about convenience commercial, and it states that no individual use should exceed 150 square meters of gross leasable floor area. As you can see, the existing floor area is significantly less than what is the maximum. Clearly, this is intended for a larger building, but our 404 square feet or 37.5 square meters of gross leasable floor area are very small with respect to the requirement of the bylaw. The other portion of the zoning bylaw talks about the combined maximum GLFA of all uses shall not exceed 5% of the total residential gross area on the premises. At the present time, that the office versus the residential space is 48% of the floor area, and significantly higher than the 5% that was required. By adding the 4 additional units, that number is reduced to 13.7%, bringing the relationship significantly closer to what the zoning requires. Now, that's the present and existing situation. We would, if we could, and we will be looking in the future to reduce the commercial space. But at the moment, because of the information the staff has and the information that we have with respect to the uses, the legality of the existing uses, we're not in a position to say we can reduce the commercial space further or even remove it. So we would request that this requested variance, in fact, be approved. If the situation we're in is, given this lack of information, the clarity of information that we have, if the variance is denied, it means that these four additional units won't get constructed immediately. And that's why we're asking that the committee approve this variance. If you approve the variance, we will have to get a building permit, and we will do whatever we need to do to get that building permit. And if we're able to reduce the amount of convenience commercial, we will do that, because we want to do that, in fact. But because of the constraints of the standing of the permitted uses of the property, whether they're legal, whether they're not legal, etc., we're dealing with the property as it presently exists. And we'd ask the committee to understand the difficulty the applicants is and the seriousness of denying this last variance. The commercial property, the commercial space exists. It exists, as you've said, Greg, for many, many years. It's not caused any problems in the neighborhood. As you can see, no one has appeared with any concerns with respect to what's proposed here. And we would ask that, given the present situation, that the committee approve the final variance, as well as the previous 5 variances being requested.
And I think we have arrived at the end of your presentation. Is that correct?
You have.
All right, feels like it, because it's been very, very well presented. Thank you. Tom, you had your hand up earlier. Did you want to continue with the question, or I'll move on to Carrie?
Yeah, just actually following up on what you had mentioned, Greg, there's a discrepancy between staff's position that this was converted to residential, and it does look on the exterior like it's a residential space. So can we just clarify that it is still a commercial space right now? It's not a residential space?
Claire, do you have anything to comment on?
Through the chair to committee member, it is staff's understanding that this property, this commercial unit has not continuously, this use has not been continuous. Therefore, the legal non-conforming status it might have enjoyed has been lost. Therefore, it is in a bit of a limbo. A commercial unit cannot legally exist at this time, as it is before the committee to permit. But it also could not be converted into a residential unit without a building permit.
So is the variance that's being requested not something the committee is able to approve because it's not considered minor? Is that it's not something that you could apply for as a minor variance?
In the opinion of staff, 13% is not considered minor and would necessitate a zoning bylaw amendment.
Okay.
Thank you. And just to add to that, before we get to Carrie, Stephen, the applicant's agent, Stephen, could you confirm that ultimately it is the intention of the property owner to remove the commercial aspect of the property and have it 100% residential through various implementations?
That would, Mr. Chairman, that would be the owner's hope and plan. However, the obstacles in place are quite convoluted. And so we would prefer to get the building permit for the 4 additional units we and do whatever we need to do to get the building permit
Right.
and then work forward.
Okay.
But I do feel, I think Claire did say that what is being applied for is within the jurisdiction of the committee. It's just that the staff doesn't believe it's a minor variance, and I accept that from their perspective.
Okay,
But
thank you. Thank you. Carrie, did you want to continue with the question? No?
We're good. Thanks.
Are there any further questions from any other committee members? So there is, I think it's clear from the presentation and staff's comments that there is a peculiarity surrounding this property with respect to its historical use, current designation, and then we have this idea that it's intending to become ideally at some point a fully residential property anyway. So that's kind of past, present, and future that this property is experiencing, which speaks to why variance number 6 is there. So I don't deny that it's not confusing, but I think we had pretty decent clarification. Jamal, did you have a question?
I just have a question through you, Mr. Chair. For the applicant, if the intent of this application is to, in the future, we're going back to it again, in the future, be all residential. My question is to you, Mr. Chair, is would we consider that the variance number 6 would be approved as well? Because I personally think that this particular location is it's kind of waste of space, or it's a shame that like other people can't purpose the with the housing market right now is very low. That additional 4 units will be beneficial for the city and for the community as well, right?
Ultimately, the scope of the committee's determination about being appropriate, being in line with what the intent and purpose is of the official plan and zoning bylaw, you could look at it that way and say, yes, the intent and purpose of the official plan and zoning bylaw is to increase density. And you could, as a committee member, think to yourself, well, it's now underutilized, and the proposed development is better utilized. So it's not, it may not be a minor, it may fit the minor variance category, because globally across the city, it is meeting the intent of the official plan and zoning bylaw. I'm not putting words in your mouth, but that's the breadth to which we measure a minor variance. It's not necessarily a numerical measure. So if anyone thinks that I'm wrong about that, I'm happy to be clarified, but that's how I approach this. Any further questions from any of the committee members? David?
I just want to come back on Tom's question. Given that my understanding is that this has gone back and forth from being residential and office space, I believe I heard Claire say that this no longer qualifies as non-conforming. Does the committee have the authority to make a motion that would allow this to be commercial when the bylaw does not require or does not allow it?
Claire?
To the committee, to Vice Chair, it cannot be a mixed-use building, that being larger commercial units. However, an apartment building with residential convenience commercial can exist in this zoning, in this zone. And as what is proposed in this application, this is a decision that committee can make. Planning staff are just of the opinion that it is not minor, and we cannot recommend it.
Okay, that's twice
Thank
that
you.
we've tried to clarify that. Hopefully, it's landing. I would give the opportunity to the presenter to provide any summary based on what we've just discussed, if they wish. Otherwise, we will proceed to putting a motion on the table. Stephen, anything you wish to add?
Just one final point, Mr. Chair. I think Claire's final comment, I think, clarified the situation. What's being requested is totally appropriate, as a convenience commercial use can be located here. The issue is, at the present time, it's 13.7%. The bylaw provides for 0.5, and we've explained the reasoning why we would like that variance approved.
Okay, thank you. All right, it is now time, David. Just hit your mute button there, unmute button, please.
I'd like to propose that we separate out variance 6.
Excellent idea.
Following consideration of all written oral presentation, I move that variance 6 of application A8523 as presented in the notice of hearing be denied, as the variances are not minor in nature nor appropriate or desirable for the use of the land, nor in keeping with the general intent of the official plan and zoning bylaw.
Okay, so we're voting on a motion only isolates variance number 6, and the recommendation happens to be, as per staff recommendation, is for denial. Is there any discussion about this? If not, all those in favor of the motion to deny number 6? Those opposed? Okay, so that's 4 in favor, 1 opposed. So the motion carried to deny variance number 6.
Carrying on, following consideration of all written and oral presentation, I move that variances 1 through 5 of variance application 8523 as presented in the notice of hearing be approved, as the variances are minor in nature, appropriate, desirable for the use of the land, and are in keeping with the general intent of the official plan and zoning bylaw.
All those in favor of the motion to approve variances 1 through 5? That motion's been approved unanimously to the applicant. There you have it. Hopefully you can navigate your way to what you want with what has been discussed and approved today. We are going to continue right along as I put all my markers in place to 17 Considine Avenue. And there we see a consent and minor variances to accommodate an existing detached dwelling unit on part 2, as well as the detached dwelling that is proposed for part 1. That's the consent, and then the variances are to recognize the proposed and existing building on each respective part. Staff report, which we have all been provided, recommends denial of the severance request, denial of variances 1 through 2 and 4 through 6. The variance number 3 is being withdrawn by the applicant, and variance of the other variance application 1 through 3 be denied. So generally speaking, it's not looking, they're not in favor of the application. Staff is not. So to speak further to this, the applicant has Stephen is their agent, and we already know that Stephen has a presentation, and I'm not sure if Stephen had the foresight to try and email it off to us, but he knows, if not, then he knows that he'll be granted this part B only opportunity to, if there's a presentation, to share the screen. Is there in fact a presentation?
Mr. Chairman, thank you. Yes, there is.
All right. Does the city in fact not have it? Therefore, you will continue. And I assume, Stephen, you still have the power to share your screen. So
Yes,
you may
he
as
does.
well, go ahead and do that.
All right.
Go ahead, Stephen.
Thank you.
He's working on it. While we're getting geared up, we have received comments from the community, and there is a registered speaker that I will get around to inviting to join the conversation after the presentation.
Jane,
Yes.
I don't know if you noticed, but Greg's still got his camera on.
Okay.
Not this Greg.
No, I know.
Greg's
Okay. Yeah.
he may not want it on.
I think he does. I'm not sure that he, I think he's okay with it on. I'm not sure he knows how to work it that well.
Is it just, it's a bit of a distraction, but is that individual participating in a future
He is.
file?
He's
Okay.
he's
You can
an agent.
just tell him to hit Alt V.
Well, we'll make sure that if everything's working for him and there's any danger of it not working, if there's any changes, we'll accommodate the situation. For right now, however, we will focus on the presentation for 17 Considine Avenue.
I took advantage of the moment.
Yes, it was good time, good filler. All right, Stephen, let it rock.
Well, here I am again, and good evening. As you're aware, we've made an application to create an additional lot at 17 Considine. It's in the cottage area of Port Dalhousie. With me this evening is Brock Buckley, the resident of 17 Considine. This is the dwelling you see in front of you. And his father, Noel Buckley, who plans with his wife to move into the new dwelling. You should note that the present deck that is here as part of the application, the application will be removed. That will become the parking space for the existing 17 Considine, and the patio area or the front area of the front yard will be in front of this section of the dwelling. And that will be at grade. So as you're aware, and I'm sure you're very aware, the cottage area has a wonderful ambiance. The owners purchased this property in 2022. The property is in fact two lots. Lot 22 TP PL 114 Louth and part lot 21 TP PL 114 Louth. When they purchased the property in 2022, the owners reached out to the city to get feedback on their idea of not demolishing the existing dwelling and creating an additional lot for a second dwelling. As you're aware, from a provincial, regional, and city perspective, the creation of an additional residential lot and a residential dwelling is being encouraged. At the time that Mr. Buckley talked to city staff, they talked to the city heritage staff, who were very supportive of the idea because it would implement the Port Dalhousie Conservation District guidelines for the conservation and change for the cottage area. The existing building would remain, and a second lot would in fact be created and a new building planted. constructed. All properties within the Heritage District that I'll quote from the conservation guidelines, if I might. All properties within the Heritage District that were constructed before 1950 are considered contributing heritage properties within the district. According to our records, 17 Considine was built in 1941, which makes it a contributing building. Demolitions of buildings built prior to 1950 are strongly encouraged. So rather than demolishing an existing and restored and renovated one-story building built in 1941 and building a totally new modern dwelling, there was support and eventually a heritage permit issued for a new dwelling on the proposed new lot. As you can see here, it is a contemporary design using form and massing that is more traditional and consistent with the design guidelines. It does meet the height limit required by the bylaw. From my perspective, the design proposed creates a positive relationship with many of the existing development dwellings in the area. Here you have existing low-rise and 1.5-story dwellings that exist. You can see landscaping, you can see parking. Clearly, we all know the area is very tight, and but they all have parking and they all have landscaping and they all have private space. One way or another, people in Port Dalhousie have made it work. These units are very attractive and create an ambience for the cottage area. And I would doubt if many of these properties meet the zoning requirements that are in fact in place. Given that we are dealing with the two properties, there is another option. The option is to demolish the house and build a new dwelling on each lot. There is an example of this situation now under construction on Paxton Lane. Whoops, where am I? Let me move forward correctly here. There we are. You can see 8 and 10 Paxton Lane. In 2020, the owner of 8 Paxton Lane had less flexibility with the 2 lots it covered. The existing 1-story cottage, even older than 17 Considine, was located in the middle of the property, and any redevelopment would require its demolition. The two dwellings you see in this photo are now under construction. They too required many variances to be approved to enable their construction. While these 2 dwellings did receive heritage permits, it would be my comment that the present proposed new dwelling on Considine, from a design perspective, fits more compatibly into the neighborhood as described in the heritage permit. I'll first speak to the consent. The proposed consent, part 1, proposes a lot of 158 square meters and a frontage of 10.36 meters, creating a remnant parcel with an existing dwelling, existing floor area of 131 square meters and a frontage of 8.5 meters. The staff report raises a question of density in relation to the official plan. I don't want to argue with this approach, but I'm not so sure it's one that I would have taken. But I would like to highlight the adjacent properties to the north. As you can see, the 3 properties highlighted in yellow and described in the chart are smaller than either the proposed or retained lots. In this case, in this neighborhood, the question isn't a density calculation, but a compatibility on the ground. This is 17 Considine with its adjacent bungalow next door, as another very small lot. These are the next two, the dwelling next to the one bungalow, the 2-story is also on a small lot. And you can see it provides parking and it provides open space in the front. In this case, it is the porch. The proposed lot and remnant parcel, when developed, will fit comfortably in the neighborhood. I'm missing a picture. Anyway, they will fit into the neighborhood. So I'd like to talk about the variances for part 1. Part 1 is the proposed lot. And you can see here the frontage variance is 10.36 meters, the smaller lot. And we can see here on the chart, the area, the items that are requiring a variance, the frontage area, and then the maximum lot coverage of 41%. If you note on the rear yard on part 1, you can see the open space of the rear yard, you can see side space, and you can see the front yard setback with a 3.39 meters front yard. And like many of the dwellings in Port Dalhousie, the land at the front of the building and the land at the rear of the building will be landscaped and will deal with the issues related to the landscaped open space. So as you see here on part 2, you can see in green, the 8.5 meter variance required for front yard for the frontage, and you can see the 0.54 meter side yard variance that's required. It was explained to me because the 0.54 meters is really an extension of the existing side yard. If I can't get rid of my phone, I'm just trying to get rid of it. But it is so. But I was informed that because the steps and the open deck, the entrance into the house is being reconfigured anew, that this variance, even though it is a continuation of the existing situation in the side yard, needs to be applied for, and therefore it is being applied for. And here you see the variety, the setbacks variances, area variances that are being required in order for this property to be developed. Clearly, there are areas of the property that don't meet the existing bylaw, but clearly the present parking space is being provided, and the deck that was previously the open space for the existing single-family home is being moved to in front of the house. It says a proposed open deck, and this will be on the ground. So that will be the open space for this property, which in fact is, it just replaces the deck that's been placed. But here we are, we have an existing house that will now fit onto this property and will fit nicely into the ambiance of the cottage area. So here you see the new house on the left being proposed and the existing dwelling on the right. And it is our submission that the proposed lot, while not meeting some of the requirements of the zoning bylaw, is certainly consistent with what has occurred in the past with respect to size and area and location of the dwelling on the lot, and will fit nicely into the cottage area as it presently exists today. And similarly, the existing one-story dwelling with the parking being being located in front of the house, and the open space at the front of the house, again, a landscaped area in front of the house will be prepared, will be offered and will exist. And like many of the buildings in Port Dalhousie, will have the same high quality of landscaping and atmosphere that exists today. So it is our request that we're not talking, what we're doing here is we're retaining, consistent with the Heritage Conservation Plan of Port Dalhousie, an existing dwelling, rather than tearing it down and building two dwellings, which we can do. And creating a new lot and building a house that in fact will fit into the neighborhood and has already received a heritage permit. That is my presentation, Mr. Chair. I would ask that the committee approve the consent and approve the conditions as outlined in Appendix A of the report that staff prepared, and that you approve the variances that have been requested by the applicant.
Okay, thank you so much. The summary of what I heard, the takeaway really in the presentation is the opportunity to preserve an existing building and develop an underdeveloped, in the eyes of the owner, an underutilized lot, and as opposed to what appears to be the case that if the existing building was torn down, there could be two new buildings to replace it. That really seems to be the argument here, is that either way, there's going to be two dwellings occupying the same lots. So if there's any other questions from the committee, I would invite members to ask them now of anybody. Tom?
Just for clarity, on A9023, variance 3 for rear yard setback and variance 6 for interior side yard. Those are existing issues with the existing building, right? Those aren't created from the new structure.
Claire?
Through the chair to the committee member, the rear yard setback is 0 meters, is an existing condition that is not impacted by this proposal and therefore is legal non-complying. The interior yard setback that is identified here is to a platform structure, and thus would warrant a 1 meter setback.
So Tom, the applicant had pointed out the fact that there's currently something there in line with the and this proposed platform structure would be in line with the building, but because it'll be a new construction, it is considered requiring this minor variance. Gamal, did you have a question?
Through you, Mr. Chair, I just want to ask a question to staff. Are there any previous concerns in regards to drainage problems in this area?
I couldn't speculate on other areas with regard to drainage. Before the committee is this application, and the presence of platform structures may impact drainage. That's to be confirmed through a lot grading and drainage plan, which would be submitted at the building permit stage, should it be the will of the committee to approve this application.
Mr. Chairman, if I might, in reading the operations comments, they don't mention an issue of drainage.
Thank you. Any questions from any other member of the committee? We have considered the written comments received, and we have a registered speaker. So if there are no more questions from the committee members, I would like to invite Paul to join the conversation and share with us their comments regarding the specifics of this application? Paul, are you on the Zoom meeting with us right now? Jane, have you noticed that Paul is with us?
I'm not sure if he is. I can reach out to him, but. let me
Well,
just- no, I guess
Okay.
he is not.
fine. Paul, you had your chance. So at this point, we've had a wholesome discussion on the intricacies of all this. I think that my summary of what the argument is from the applicant and agent is correct from what I heard. If somebody finds merit in that or not, I would like to invite them to put a motion on the table for us to consider. Tom?
Yes, I'll put forward a motion. We have to read the whole thing, right?
So this is one of these consents and variances, but motions. So we have the wording that covers both as a motion. Do you see any need to break anything out on its own
No, not really.
in your motion? Okay, good. Well, then, yes, read the whole thing, read it all in as a consent and variance application.
Following consideration of all written and oral presentations, I move that consent application B1223 SC and variance applications A9023 and A9123 as presented in those of hearing be approved as the consents are desirable and compatible with the surrounding area, have no adverse impacts on the surrounding properties, have regard for section 5124 of the Planning Act, conform with the policies of the city's official plan and zoning bylaw, maintain the intent and purpose of the provincial policy statement, and do not conflict with any provincial plans. And the variances are minor in nature, appropriate and desirable for the use of the land, and are in keeping with the general intent of the official plan and zoning bylaw.
And would you say that included in that is the recognition of the withdrawal of variance number 3? So the applicant has withdrawn variance number 3 of application 9023. So you're just make note of that.
Yes, so save and accept for variance 3.
Okay, let's have a discussion because I want to clarify that the motion on the table is to approve the application. David?
I believe that in the approval that staff has, should we choose to approve, that there are significant number of conditions that should also be noted in the motion.
I believe there's a notice about heritage needing still an application.
Okay, so I'm looking through the technical report and I don't see this the conditions that you're referring to, David.
I recall seeing something about heritage application needing to be renewed.
It's not
If I
specifically
may, through
broken.
the chair.
Yes, please, Claire.
On
Thank you.
Appendix A of the report is upon circulation to commenting bodies and agencies, conditions were provided should it be the will of this committee to approve this severance. Those are listed on Appendix A.
Let's take a moment to
We're looking
hey,
at page
given
63 of the packet.
63 of the PDF.
Yeah, 62 and 63 of 223 pages.
Yes, Appendix A. I see them now. So there are 11 conditions that the staff had the foresight for us to consider should we approve the application. And it would be prudent upon us, since I was not immediately aware how this was going to go and don't recall what the conditions were, to take a quick look. So I'm going to skim over cash payment in lieu of parkland dedication, payment for boulevard tree, provide a draft reference plan prior to registration and the severance. So cash, they want a bunch of money. for a number of things, sidewalks, trees, fee to inspect sewers and water service, blah, blah, blah. So the applicant is presumably saw these 11 conditions. We have a motion to approve. Does the applicant agent, I mean, can you please acknowledge that you're aware of these conditions?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yes, we are, and we have, in my presentation, I asked that you approve the, include the.
Okay. Thank you. So we are good to go. Yeah, Carrie, do you have a discussion? We're sort of discussing the motion on the table.
Tom, where do you see the reference to the heritage?
It's on page 60 or 71 of 230. It was dated September 8th.
So perhaps I could help.
Well, we're in this, okay, for information purposes, but we are discussing the motion that we have on the table. So we usually, but help is always good. So yes, Stephen, please try and help.
So in order, the deck is going to be removed. To do that, he needs a heritage permit.
Thank you. That's short and sweet and understood.
But why would that not be in Appendix A? Oh, it's in reference to the other property.
Yes.
Yes. 71?
Yes.
Thank you.
Right. I think that, staff is pretty diligent in preparing these conditions. Should we be recommending approval? The motion recommending approval. And I'm sure the heritage people will get their say at the appropriate time. But we can make motion. We can make note of that. So at this point, with clarity that the applicant is fully aware of the conditions related to a possible approval of the application, we should be able to vote on this. So here we go. All those in favor of the motion, show of hands. Those opposed? Okay, we have a 3-2 in favor, so the application has carried. Motion has carried, so the application has been approved. And in this case, the 11 consents would have to be observed. So congratulations to the applicant and agent.
So is it clear? Have we been clear with reference to the conditions and so on?
I feel like we've been clear with the reference to the conditions.
Are you clear, Jane?
I am clear.
Roger.
Hey, crystal clear?
We're you're approving the application with the 11 conditions, correct?
Yeah, yes, correct.
Okay.
So, thank you. Item number 7 on our agenda is pertaining to 90 Louisa Street. There are,
Mr. Chair.
Yes.
There is not any registered speakers on that one. That was an error. That was an error.
Same name.
It was an error. I'm sorry.
I got you. So let me switch over to my information here. So we are at 90 Louisa Street in beautiful St. Catharines, and we have a minor variance application to facilitate the construction of a second interior accessory dwelling unit to be located on the ground floor of an existing detached dwelling. The minor variances relate to parking spaces and maximum floor area of an interior accessory dwelling unit. And we have staff report that the staff are recommending approval. And we have an agent representing the property owner. So Carlos, did you want to speak to this application? Or anybody from Parker Architects who might be available?
Good evening, Mr. Chair. This is Carlos.
Hello, Carlos. Yes.
Thank you for the opportunity. Yes, this is a very straightforward case of the intensification of housing It's going to be,
Before you start, I mean, may you engage your camera just so we can see your pretty face? It's part of the
Is it now?
verification process. Thank you.
okay, great. Thank you very much. Okay, so this is, yeah, I was saying that this is a very straightforward case of the intensification of housing. Basically, this is, as you explained before, is a single dwelling unit with an existing, single dwelling unit with an existing ADU on the second floor, complying with all the zoning requirements of 55 square feet under 60 meters, 60 meters, I mean. And then the client wants to create a second internal ADU on the ground floor that basically goes over 1.46 square meters. That is basically only 2.4% of the requirement by the zoning by law. So that's one part of the minor requirements. And the second one, it will be for parking spaces, as the 3 units will require 3 parking, and we only can provide 1 on the garage and 1 on the driveway. So that's basically what we have. But the property is very close to the terminal, and basically the users, that is the units are only 1 bedroom, are mostly using public transportations, or this is the type of user that they have.
Thank you so much for your contributions. So any members, any questions or clarification required, any members of the committee? If not, we're in the habit of acknowledging when we have received comments. So we have in fact received comments from the surrounding neighbors, a neighbor regarding this. And at this time, I'd like to invite Carrie Least maybe to read a motion in, please. And Gamal, do you have a question, or were you also
I was
volunteering?
gonna make a motion.
Well, I asked Carrie first. You'll just have to wait. Carrie.
Consideration of all written and oral presentations, I move that variance number A9823 as presented in the notice of hearing be approved as recommended in the technical report, as the 2 variances are minor in nature, appropriate and desirable for the use of the land, and are in keeping with the official plan and zoning bylaw.
Okay. All those in favor of the motion, show of hands. So that application has been approved unanimously. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
So just to clarify, I turn off my video and audio, and that's it.
We have arrived at the that time. Yes. So thank you, Carrie, for reminding us. So we are now a committee of 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, and we are reviewing an application for catch up to severances, consent to sever, and associated minor variances for predominantly 378 Niagara Street, or exclusively 378 Niagara Street. And this application proposes to that 378 Niagara Street be divided into 3 lots with 1 detached residential dwelling proposed on each lot. And staff recommendation regarding the consent application is for denial, and staff recommendation regarding the variances requested is also for denial. So I'm sure that the applicant will be eager to join us now and speak to their application, presumably in support of their application. So, Greg, it looks like you're up. At this point, you are turning on your mic, and you have done that.
Can you hear me?
We can hear you.
Terrific. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My name is Greg Hind. I'm a professional planner with Urban Environments. I represent the Biagi family who are present tonight, and I will be addressing the main issues, and Mr. Biaggi will be addressing the conditions of consent. We started this process over a year ago, and it started with a couple of meetings with staff, then the normal pre-consult meeting. Planning staff and representing the city wanted townhouses, 4 on this site. The Biaggi family wished to put 3 single-family detached on the vacant parcel, 1 for each family member, and they're all children of Lou and Maria Biaggi. The land is registered in the name of all 3 children. Over the last year, we have amended the plan to change the size of lot frontages, the building areas, side yards, and we prepared 3 concept drawings on what they would look like and what they would look like on the street. Based on the nature of the concept drawings, we requested variances to the side yards to protect a variance or a variation in roof pitch when we came to doing the final design on the building. We've progressed to a stage where we're further along than just the concept drawings for the buildings. And so today we are also requesting, Mr. Chairman and members of committee, the removal of the side yard applications. And we will accept the 7-meter height limitation as we proceed. This will certainly ensure conformity with the rest of Meadowbrook, and it may even give a level of comfort to the staff members. So once again, we're requesting the withdrawal of the minor variances in regards to the interior side yards for our application. In regards to the issue of lot sizes, the proposed lot size of 613 meters squared and 631 meters squared and 691 meters squared, we acknowledge that they certainly exceed the bylaw requirement of 538. This is a result of large lots in the neighborhood, and most of the, and in fact, most of the lot depths in this area are around 140 to 130 feet in depth. Ours is 42.67 meters, which is 140. And that's a lot configuration that usually does exist in the old suburban neighborhoods. They're typical, but the typical lot depths for new development these days is between 100 and 110. I don't think we can lose sight, Mr. Chairman, of the zone that we're dealing with though. And the zone is an R1 low-density suburban residential zone for suburban residential neighborhoods. Most of the neighborhood has been designed with large lot depths and huge, large rear yard activity areas. So flexibility in applying intensification regulations must be applied, or infills wouldn't get done in any of the existing neighborhoods that were designed previous with the suburban residential zone. Flexibility in applying these intensification regulations must be applied, and we don't think it has been in this situation. To make an issue of the large lot areas is something that we can't address. They exist, they existed previously, and it does influence the lot areas all along the street. The lot frontages of 14.37 meters, 15.14 meters, and 16.2 meters certainly do not meet the suburban residential standard of 16.5. But these lot frontages are just minor adjustments in our opinion. and reflect the frontages of new development and are similar to the frontages across the street on Meadowbrook. The reduced frontages also bring the lot areas closer to the regulation. What I'm saying is, as we shrink the lot frontages, it shrinks the lot areas also. The other issue is the exterior side yard using the averaging criteria. The exterior side yard of a suburban residential zone is 4 meters. That's what it says in the bylaw, or 13.2 feet. The exterior side yard in other zones in the city of St. Catharines that permit single-family residential is 3 meters. The proposal we have in front of you is for 3.05 meters. So if you just look at the criteria and the regulation for the exterior side yard, we're a little bit above what the regulation says in the bylaw. But using the averaging process in this instance for the following reasons is not appropriate, because when applied in this instance, using adjoining properties on the same side of Niagara Street results in an averaging setback of 10.7 meters, which is 35 feet. And this would sterilize the use of that single residential family lot. It would sterilize even the proposed 4 townhouse units that the municipal staff wanted us to apply for. The planning staff, in fact, during our numerous meetings, admits that the averaging process is flawed and does not apply in every situation and will be revisited for change in the near future. And it's always been my position that even a variety of side yards, exterior side yards, creates traffic calming along a busy thoroughfare like this regional road of Niagara Street is. And that calming effect certainly would be a benefit to the neighborhood. The real intent of a required side yard setback is to ensure adequate space is provided for the dwelling at the edge of the property line, for landscaping, for maintenance, even for the access for emergency staff. If you're fighting a fire or have to get back there for some reason. In this situation, the side yard and the distance provided more than adequately provide for landscaping on this side yard. Niagara Street is a regional road, and the region did not comment or object to the development of this setback. The other issue is trees versus this infill development. In the pre-consultation meeting, the city identified the need for a tree preservation plan. The client went out and hired professional arborist, Davey Tree Service. They submitted their plan. They indicated that some trees were worth preserving, some trees were worth not only preserving, but taking a look at the disease that impacted some of them and seeing what we could do to save them and put them back to good health. The Davey Tree Service indicated that some of the boulevard trees that Mr. Biaggi planted with city staff many years ago, that they could be taken down if the driveways were absolutely necessary to go in that situation, as long as he replanted similar species on site at a 2-to-1 ratio. Staff rejected this. Mr. Biaggi is even willing to plant 3 to 4 more trees, just so he can increase the greenery in the area, add to the streetscape, and certainly add to the canopy along that street. It's been the position of the owner all along and the planning staff that when you come to taking a look at trees versus driveway location, that you should pull the driveways as far as you can away from an intersection. You don't put them closer to the intersection, you pull them away from the intersection just for safety and proper traffic operations. This driveway situation should also be, individual driveways should be separated, and you shouldn't have back-to-back driveways abutting each other. You don't want this hard surface or this hard landscaping to dominate a streetscape. So in our proposal, which you see, the driveways are separated and they're pulled back as far as possible from the intersection. The boulevard trees in front of Part 3, closest to the existing house, do not have to be protected. The arborist report indicates that one of these trees can be removed and replaced by 2 new trees. And as I said, this certainly isn't the position taken by town staff. And in your report, there is no mention. In fact, they say the trees can't be removed. The arborist said they can be removed as long as we replace them. The other issue is the official plan guidance for this type of development. If you look at page 4 of your report, planning staff have already set up a series of policies for you to review, and we present them to you because they're all in support of developing this site by consent. It is the certain section 1611 of the Garden City Plan indicates under subsection 3 that it's clearly apparent that no development could take place which would lead to significant expense to the city in regards to public works, which would lead to further development of having no expense. The proposed lots would make use of existing infrastructure. Any required improvements to the infrastructure, such as municipal streets, water, wastewater, and stormwater services, will be at the owner's expense. Therefore, there's no anticipated cost to the city. The other section of the official plan says they contribute to the infilling of areas that are already substantially developed. This is certainly the situation here. The subject lands are located within the city's built boundary, and the Meadowbrook Crescent is a developed area, with this only being the one empty lot for infill. The other policy states the size and shape and configuration of the parcel is appropriate for the use proposed and in terms of the optimum development of the surrounding area. The shape and size of these areas are consistent with the development along Meadowbrook. They protect the generous activity rear yards, and they mimic the front yards of the residential development across. So we think there is not adequate, but excellent support in the official plan to support the development as proposed before the committee this evening. About a year ago, Mr. Chairman, we had a similar project before you. The lot configuration was exactly the same. In fact, I attended earlier this evening to remove an application regarding one of the conditions of that proposal. And the committee and staff supported this. It was at 189 Lockhart. It had a similar zoning, a suburban residential zoning. It had a similar lot configuration. The rear lots were large. The lot areas exceeded the bylaw requirement. And the previous project on it was for townhousing. Townhousing was turned down. We presented another option to the Committee of Adjustment, a sensitive infill into this neighborhood of one other lot and retaining the residential unit on the property. The analysis was quite different by the planning staff in regards to support. Number one, they supported the application. They felt the development brought the property closer to conformity with density issues. And while increasing the overall density, contributed to a gentler infill in this area. So we feel that this application should have gone through the same screening, the same analysis, and the same recommendation. In fact, the averaging was set aside in that situation because it didn't make complete sense because of the configuration of the road. As such, the staff of the day from the city found the variances meet the general intent of the zoning bylaw and official plan amendment.
Excuse me for a quick second, Greg. Just as ultimately, as we are told and know, the application that we have before us is specific to the application and this property, and there's really no precedent that we refer to. So ultimately, I know some of the committee members here weren't part of that hearing, so I'm not sure that the relevance of comparing this application to one from a couple of years ago is significant at the time. If we could move on from that, and you could summarize your presentation, please.
And I was just trying to see there are comparisons within the city that have the same criteria that exist with this lot and the redevelopment of this lot. I wasn't trying to say that all properties are the same and should be treated the same. In conclusion, we know that the consents and the review of the Section 53 criteria of the Planning Act for consent applications, we think it complies. It's my planning opinion that it complies, and it's appropriate for the development of the land. In regards to the minor variances, we've filtered these applications and these variances against the 4 tests set out in Section 45. They meet the general intent of the OP and zoning. They're minor in nature, and they're desirable for the appropriate development of this neighborhood. And as outlined previous, if you go to Section 1611 of the OP, it certainly sets the basis and the policy direction for us to develop the lands as we've provided to you. Our request this evening, Mr. Chairman, is that you set aside the recommendations of staff, you approve the consents and the variances with the suggested recommendation or the suggested conditions is set out in your report before you, and with the proviso that number one, that Mr. Biaggi has some concerns with the conditions. So set aside the recommendations, approve the consents, approve the variances with conditions as possibly amended by Mr. Biaggi's input. And those are my submissions, and I'm certainly here to answer some questions if you have any.
Okay, thank you so much.
Mr.
So
Chair,
just yes, Jane.
when we do go to a motion, we do need to work on the part 4 first, which is merging with part 5. It's just a little boundary adjustment. It should be done first.
Certainly. Okay.
Okay, thank you.
I guess the summary, I'd like to try and summarize what we've all heard here, just from my own understanding. So it seems to me that we have a situation here where we have particularly deep lots, and we have a proportion and issue and an efficiency of density issue, and it's hard to make an existing deep lot accommodate higher density without there being sort of a townhouse type development proposal, because you get to, you end up with 0 lot lines and you can fit more density on the lot, because you can't really cut off the backyard and turn it into a new lot. So it seems to me that the city's denial of most of this application is centered around the fact that there's an opportunity not to perpetuate this sort of executive single family residence style type lot size and the lowest possible density, and that there is an opportunity here to take this lot and with a different housing type and increase the density, which is in fact what the one of the intents of the official plan and zoning bylaw is. And so that seems to be, for me, to be the crux of the argument for the in the report. And obviously the owner is looking at comfortable lots with comfortable housing for family members, which is, that building type is permitted, but not, maybe doesn't recognize the best use of the land in terms of the city's perspective. And just to clarify to the presenter, was there not a suggestion that the applicant was voluntarily withdrawing all of the minor variances with respect, or was going to meet the interior side yard bylaw requirements?
That's correct.
Okay.
We were withdrawing our applications for variances on the interior side yards.
Okay. So that's my summary as I understand it. And now I'd like to invite the members, Tom, to ask any questions, clarifications of anybody.
So my first question was answered about the setbacks. Second question I had was around what Jane had mentioned about part 5. So this is 378 Niagara and 36 Meadowbrook. Do we have to read a motion separately for 378 and 36, or can those be lumped?
36 should be read separately because it's a boundary adjustment. Part 4 is going over to 36 and it's an existing property. So it should be read in separately.
Oh, that's
And voted on.
B3023.
B-30/23, yeah, SC, yes.
That's such a irregular sliver. It doesn't really seem to, I mean, it's something we could take care of right now. It doesn't seem to have, it was not going to make or break the rest of the application. Tom?
Correct.
All right, I'll present a motion.
Okay, we'll get that out of the way. Good.
Following consideration of all written and oral presentations, I move that consent application B-30/23 SC be approved, subject to the conditions outlined, or that's in Appendix A, as they are desirable and compatible with the surrounding area, have no adverse impacts on the surrounding properties, have regard for Section 5124 of the Planning Act, conform with the policies of the city's official plan and zoning bylaw, maintain the intent and purpose of the provincial policy statement, and do not conflict with any applicable provincial plans.
Okay. All those in favor of that motion? Those opposed? David, you're muted, but you
Yeah,
seem to
I
have
have a
voted.
question.
Oh, okay. Well, we're in the middle of voting, so do you want
I
to?
know, but
I'm sorry. You have a question before we started voting?
There was a note about Appendix A from Development Engineering that the same conditions referenced earlier be included.
okay, so this is just B30
30-23.
merge. Okay,
Yes. Okay. So all those in favor, show of hands. Excellent. So that has been approved unanimously and has really no impact on the remainder, which we are going to continue to talk about. David.
now given that the interior side yards will now all comply, is there a consideration for making the exterior side yard comply as well to the bylaw?
Well, they didn't mention it, so presumably not, but if that, is that a question to the applicant then?
Yes.
To the applicant, were you interested in letting up on the variance for the exterior side yard?
Well, as I guess I didn't make it clear. If we went for the exterior side yard based on the averaging, we would sterilize the whole property. It's just
Yeah,
not.
you didn't make that. That was clear. Yes.
No, I was referring to the current bylaw exterior side yard. Which I believe is 4 meters. As opposed to the averaging.
We probably could live with that, but I'd have to have the input of the Mr. Biagi on that. My opinion, we could probably live with the existing bylaw regulation for exterior side yards.
Well, we will, I see that Lou Biagi and Nicholas Pasquale, we have a couple of registered speakers, which are the people that you'll be looking for confirmation from. So we'll get around to inviting them to participate in the conversation regarding that. So we'll come back to that when we hear from them. Is this a good time to have Lou participate? Committee? I think feels like it is.
I think it would be very appropriate.
All right. Well, Lou, this is your 15 minutes of fame.
Okay, thank you very much. Appreciate it. We could live with that, except for the fact that we were trying to achieve the common frontages for the proposed dwellings, and that would mean that we might have to do another slight boundary adjustment to the lots to make them the same building envelope width. So, and that would probably require a new set of applications, or could that be done through a condition on this application?
That sounds complicated enough. I'm going to assume the city would require another application, but if Brenda has if Brenda has a comment on that.
Through the chair, I think it depends on the extent of the changes to the application. But currently staff are recommending denial of the application, so.
Okay, thank you. May I just ask, David, with respect to your inquiry about the inclusion of the exterior side yard, what does that mean for you in your decision-making process? If the applicant were to be compliant with that?
It's sort of a make or break for me.
Okay. Well, any other committee member? Just Tom, did you want to make a comment?
Yeah, through you, Mr. Chair, to David. I was just wanting to clarify what was meant about the 4 meters. I saw that the required was 10.01 meters and proposed was 3.05.
My understanding, and planning could confirm for us, but my understanding is that the current bylaw, putting aside the averaging, would be 4 meters.
And Brenda, please.
So in terms of how the bylaw is worded, is the exterior setback, side yard setback is 4 meters. But if the setback is greater than 2 meters, then the averaging applies.
So thank you. So I think what David is doing is that there is a bylaw with a number, and it's in between the two numbers that we're looking at. So it's recognized as a number in an instance where you're not averaging. So for him, it has some relevance to his decision-making process.
So yes,
Tom, is there?
Sorry, we would accept the 4 meters if that was required.
Okay, Tom, thank you for that confirmation, Tom.
I'm ready to put a motion. There's no other conversation.
Jamal, do you have anything you wanted to clarify?
I think, through you, Mr. Chair, I think I had a similar question as Dave Ringer, but I think that's been clarified already.
Okay. And who, Nicholas Pasquale, Nicholas, are you with the, you're a registered speaker, are you with the presentation team?
You can turn your camera on.
Hi, yes, At this time, I don't have any comments right at this moment.
Okay. And Lou, do you feel that you have said all you wanted to say?
Well, I had some other comments here, but
This is the time to bring them up.
I just wanted to address two conditions. One was for the trees. Because the arborist report did suggest or recommend that tree number 2 be removed and replaced by 2 native trees of the same species. So, and we would be willing to supply even 3 or 4 trees if that would help. So we would like that report implemented, because the extra tree would double the tree canopy that we have today and the foliage, and would be good for the environment, better for the community, a streetscape, and would allow the driveways to be implemented where they can be placed. The other condition was for the sidewalk fee of $13,000. We feel that's a little excessive and unreasonable. We don't see a sidewalk ever being built on Meadowbrook Crescent because it's a 50-year-old subdivision. There's lots of infrastructure in the boulevard, including light standards and electrical boxes and large trees with a large root system. So I'm not sure how the system works where the $13,000 is applied, but if it's applied to someone else's sidewalk, I don't think that's really fair. So if that was there was a possibility of removing that condition, that would be what we'd be looking for. So the 2 conditions we're looking at having modified is item 5 and 6, where we could we'd like it to state that only tree number 1 has to be protected and tree number 2 can be removed for access to the driveway and replaced with 2 trees and even up to 4 trees if necessary. And the other is condition number 8 for the sidewalk deposit. We would like to have that removed if possible.
Okay. Does that conclude your comments?
I just also want to just address quickly the minor variances regarding the frontages. That I want to state that there are a number of other lots in the area within less than a kilometer of our lot that have been approved with much smaller frontages. And so based on the fact that 14, 15, and 16 meters of frontage is so close to the 16.5 meter requirement that we believe that it's absolutely minor in nature. And we've already spoken about the exterior side there. So that would be all I have to say, except that we feel it's a very appropriate use of the land with homes that are complementary to and compatible with the homes on the street, and that the 3 new homes and extra trees will absolutely enhance the neighborhood and streetscape, as evidenced by the support of many neighbors. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. Tom, were you ready to do this?
Yes, but I had a question before I did.
All right.
Since conditions can always be requested to be amended at a later date, and given the complexity of how many variances and consents are listed here, are the conditions something we can vote on separately afterwards?
Well, there's no, I don't see there's, I mean, there's this evening, and then there's no afterwards after this evening.
Okay.
So
this
in
evening is
terms
what I
of,
meant.
and so in terms of breaking out the conditions separately to vote on them, yes, we have done that, and yes, we can do that. Should that be your wish?
That would be my wish. So I just
Or we can
mentioned
talk
that in the.
about- or we can read, we could read the motion in. You can read the motion in as it is, and then we can discuss the motion and those consents, and then we could decide to break them out separately if there was, you know, if there was not a consensus among the committee. But just before you go any further, David, did you have something you wanted to contribute?
I was just thinking that if we did the consents first, we could then discuss the request for changes to the conditions.
Well, the consents are contingent upon us potentially approving the application. if we happen to deny it, then there are no consents to consider.
That's what I'm saying.
Ah.
So if we separate out the consents, we can then have a discussion relating to the conditions that the applicant has requested.
So if we put a motion on regarding the consents, put a motion on the table regarding consents, vote on it, if it's in favor of whatever, but if the remainder of the motion to follow is for denial, then that becomes null and void. But it's dealt with if it's approved. Is that your intent?
Correct.
Okay. So Tom is
Because the conditions don't come into effect until we give it approval.
Yeah, but we're not giving, but we're talking about conditions before we even know if we're gonna give it approval. But
Yeah,
I see
exactly.
what you're saying. I see the cleanliness of what you're proposing. So Tom, and that supports what Tom is suggesting, breaking out the consents. Anyway, so let's talk about the consents first. And then we'll see if they're actually gonna be relevant in the next motions, the motions to follow. So the applicant is talking about consent item number 5 and 6, 5 being trees. The proposal sounded reasonable to me. Sidewalks are always a good thing. I believe that the city's answer is, and I'll ask, is that it kind of goes into a slush fund, or unless there actually is some intention to start sidewalks in the street. But perhaps, Brenda, you could confirm where that the cost of the sidewalk would end up in this case.
Through the chair, it is a fee that's set aside for sidewalk construction, but I think the intent is that the sidewalks would continue along this crescent.
Okay. So with that information, that may impact how the motion is read in, whether 6 is included or not. So Tom, at this point, are you suggesting that we just talk about the contested consents?
Sure. Just to clarify, I don't believe there is a sidewalk on the street, correct?
That's correct. There is no sidewalk. And I'm sorry, I wasn't able to hear Brenda's answer. It was cutting out. What was the answer there?
Sorry, go
Brenda.
ahead.
No, Brenda, I just want to introduce you. Brenda, everybody.
Hi. So it does go into a fund, but I think the future intent is that this sidewalk would continue in front of these lots.
So generally speaking, in the history of people contesting the sidewalk payment, is the city is always wanting an opportunity to correct a 50-year ago wrong by not providing pedestrian-friendly streets and sidewalks. So there is an attempt that even though the community may not enjoy sidewalks now, there is an intention to have them enjoy sidewalks in the future. And this is part of a contribution to that effort. So at this point, that's the information for Tom to consider when he makes the motion he's about to make right now regarding which consents we're going to separate and vote on.
So we break down Appendix A and remove certain, if that's what we're voting on?
Well, the applicant has only expressed dissatisfaction or amendments to 5 and 6 as proposed. So it appears to me that we're focused on 2.
Okay. Yeah, so 5 seems reasonable to me. 6, that's what was my question about the sidewalks, is there is no sidewalks on the street and it's littered, well, not littered, but there's boulevard trees and hydrants on the way of what a potential sidewalk could be in, where a potential sidewalk would be installed, which is kind of the issue we're talking about with trees. So I don't really see that happening.
Yeah, but you're thinking about one of those straight sidewalks, not one of those windy ones that goes around existing trees. And but I think the important takeaway there is the city is trying to correct, give sidewalks where sidewalks do not exist currently.
All right, I'm just trying to find the appendix here. So I have it in front of me. Okay, I move to consider, so following consideration of all written and oral presentations, I move that consent applications B08 23SC and B09 23SC, subject to the conditions outlined in Appendix A, save and except for number 5, be approved as they are desirable and compatible with the surrounding area, have no adverse impacts on the surrounding properties, have regard for section 5124 of the Planning Act, conform with the policies of the city's official plan and zoning bylaw, maintain the intent and purpose of the provincial policy statement, and do not conflict with any applicable provincial plans.
Okay, I was gonna hold on a second here. So the way I read it, way I understand your motion is we are in fact voting on the consent. The consents as presented, and you're recommending approval of them with respect to isolating, with respect to the conditions, you're removing condition number 5.
So that, well, there's, I don't know if it's entirely removing condition 5. There's talk about removing one tree, not, because they've already submitted an arborist report.
We would have to rephrase condition number 5. But I'm not sure that this was read in quite the way I thought it was going to. I'm curious to hear what David has to say.
It's not the way I would have done it, but I think the important piece is that we identify that what the applicant is saying is that tree 2 be removed and replaced by 2 trees.
Well, I feel like,
Or I would separate out the conditions.
well, I feel like we possibly do not want to be referencing the applications themselves, the consent applications. We just want to talk about the consents associated with the future motion to determine the consent applications. Because right now it sounds to me like we're voting on approval of consent applications and the associated conditions, because if we approve them, those conditions are being addressed, whereas we may not approve the consent applications and we're not actually dealing with the isolated conditions that I thought we were trying to deal with. Does that make any sense to anybody, or am I okay? So I feel like the motion might want to be reconsidered, not to reference the 2 files, the consent application files, but just reference the conditions that would be associated with the files should they be approved in a future motion. So I guess maybe that's kind of like a friendly amendment, or did you want to, Tom, did you want to put that in your own words, or were you happy with the way that you read it in?
I don't, so you're suggesting we vote on the appendix and the conditions themselves?
That was my understanding. And then we would vote on whether or not the consent application should be approved, because if it or deny, or approved or denied, if it's denied, this doesn't matter. If it's approved, then that first motion contributes to that.
Mm-hmm. It was Boulevard tree number 2 be removed and replaced by 2 trees.
Boulevard tree, I can't read my notes. Protected, and boulevard tree number 2 be replaced with multiple trees to up to 4, or 2 to 4.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so we're reading in, and we have to do this for each consent, or just the conditions themselves?
Well, I'm trying not to put. I'm trying not to steer you, and it's your motion. I'm just suggesting that the motion right now, you reference the 2 consent applications with respect to this, and I think you use the word approval in your motion, which means we're voting on to approve the consent applications, which is exactly what I thought we talked about not doing, and just first looking at the consents by themselves, which should stay in or stay out, and then we will a motion to approve the vote on the consents, and depending on how that goes, that first motion will either be null and void, or will have a direct reference to the following motion.
Mm-hmm. Okay. I understand what you're saying. There's just not a guideline for how to read in a condition amendment.
How about that? What if it went something like regarding appendix 2 proposed consent from the city in the city report. Approval of 1 through 11. I guess we'd like to use save and accept 5, which you might like to amend to protect tree number 1 and tree number 2 be replaced with 2 or 4 trees. That would isolate our motion to just a document, which is just the consent, just the conditions. And then we put that on hold, whatever that is, and see if it applies to the eventual motion on the consent applications themselves.
All right. And
so right now, the motion you have read in the 2 consent applications specifically. You mentioned the motion is for approval of those, and you're also tying in the consent app, the associated conditions that you want to remove and vote on separately.
We're going to vote on the conditions separately.
I felt like that's what you were intended to do, but yeah, it's and you could withdraw your motion and we could start fresh from a different perspective.
Could I possibly suggest something? Or no?
Well, this is kind of a sensitive issue we're in here now, Lou. So at this point, you would have a biased suggestion. So I think it would not be appropriate. David?
Tom, can I make a suggestion that we make a motion that should the consent applications be approved, that condition number 5 be revised to read the tree number 1 be protected and tree number 2 be replaced by anywhere from 2 to 4 trees.
Okay, that was the wording I wasn't able to come up with myself.
Excellent.
Yeah.
So we'll call that a friendly amendment.
Yeah.
By Dave of Tom, your original motion. Is that acceptable?
Yes.
All right. Those are the words we needed to have. So right now we're voting on the acceptance of the city's conditions should the consent application be approved, and we are revising item number 5 as stated. So all those in favor of the motion? Great, that's unanimous. The client is paying for a sidewalk, possibly, and they're taking down and replacing a tree. So the big one now, where this will all apply, is to come back to the consent, the motion for the rest of the application. So that being the 2 consent applications. Tom, you might as well continue with this well-crafted beast.
Following consideration of all written and oral presentations, I move that consent applications B0823SC and B0923SC be approved, subject to the conditions in Appendix A as modified by the previous motion, as they are desirable and compatible with the surrounding area, have no adverse effects or impacts on the surrounding properties, have regard for Section 5124 of the Planning Act, conform with the policies of the city's official plan and zoning bylaw, maintain the intent and purpose of the provincial policy statement, and do not conflict with any applicable provincial plans.
Okay, so those are just the consents, and there's nothing wrong. So we'll do that this way. So those are the consents, and the motion is for approval. All of those in favor of the approval of the consent? I didn't see it going that way. That was unanimous. So now it'll be the variances, and the consideration here is to amend, if you wish, in your motion to note that the client is going to, the application will conform to the zoning requirements for interior side yard setbacks, and for the exterior side yard setback, the applicant is willing to observe a 4-meter setback. That could be part of your motion, should you wish. Tom.
Yes, I just had a clarifying question. For A3123, which with respect to the exterior side yard, can that just be removed from, because or in this
No.
case, the averaging would apply, so we have to amend it to show that's 4 meters.
Yes, but David might like to have a comment on that.
I'm wondering if instead of dealing with them as motions, if we can get the agreement of the applicant to withdraw the interior side yard and the exterior, well, we can't deal with the exterior side yard.
Well, interestingly enough, the application before us does not have a withdraw on there. The application we have is sort of set in stone as far as I'm concerned with what they said. So it's up to us, I would say, to alter in our motion, to alter it as it appears as though the applicant has agreed to do. So I feel that what we're proposing to do with, okay. So Tom, are you crystal clear?
Yes.
Excellent. Let her rip.
Following consideration of all oral and written presentations, I move that variance applications A 2923, A 3023, save and accept for variance number 3, A 10223, save and accept for variance number 3 and number 4, and A 3123, save and accept for variance number 3 and amending variance 4 to an exterior side yard setback of 4 meters. Be approved as the variances are minor in nature, appropriate for the desirable for the use of the land, and are in keeping with the general intent of the official plan and zoning bylaw.
I feel like you nailed it. All those in favor of the motion? Good. So to the applicant, I hope you followed along closely. Your application has been by and large approved. So congratulations. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Boy, that was fun. It actually was kind of fun. Item number 14 on our agenda, Meadowbrook. No, that was part of.
That was read in as part of.
Yeah. I just have to adjust my note taking here. Item number 15 on our agenda is 61 York Street, right? Right.
It is correct.
Right. 61 York. Let me just scroll down to 61 York. So here we have a consent and associated minor variances to sever an existing lot to establish a lot for an existing semi-detached dwelling unit. The 850 square meter remnant parcel, part 2, will be for continued residential use of the existing semi-attached dwelling unit. And the staff report lists conditions, which seems very popular this evening. 6 conditions regarding the consent, and they recommend approval of the minor variances. So that is the summary of the application. And we have no registered speakers, no comments received. We do have Terry acting as the agent. So Terry, is there anything else you wish to add to the conversation regarding this application?
No, Mr. Chair, I'm fine with everything you just said.
You've read the conditions, and there's the 6 conditions, and it's fully understood. Okay, thank you. Any questions there? Oh, Carrie's back. Okay. Any questions or clarifications from committee? Carrie?
No, I was going to wrestle with the motion on this one.
Okay, well, I don't see anyone looking like they have any other questions, so please wrestle away.
Following consideration of all written and oral presentations, I move that consent application B2423SC and minor variance application A7623 as presented in notice of hearing and as recommended in the technical report, complete with, I believe, 6 conditions regarding the severance, be approved as the consents are desirable and compatible with the surrounding area, have no adverse impacts on the surrounding properties, have regard for section 5124 of the Planning Act, conform with the policies of the city's official plan and zoning bylaw.
Nice.
The intent and purpose of the provincial policy statement and do not conflict with any applicable provincial plans. And the variances are minor in nature, appropriate and desirable for the use of the land, and are in keeping with the general intent of the official plan and zoning bylaw.
Excellent. Thank you. All those in favor of the motion? To the applicant, your application's been approved unanimously.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome very much. We're moving on to 228 Queenston Street.
Sorry, did we miss?
Yeah, Tom.
Did we miss a variance there on 63 York, A7523? It was listed as a separate item on the agenda, so that's why I didn't speak up when it was being read in.
Yes, we did. I'll modify my motion to include A7523 as a minor variance, in addition to A76 and the consent B24. Thank you.
Thank you, Tom. And with that modification, we'll just do another little vote. Is everybody in favor of the modified motion? Show of hands. Great, thank you. I assume that was a correct way of dealing with that. Thanks again, Tom. 228 Queenston Street. Did I already talk about this? No. This is to facilitate minor variances. 3, to facilitate a proposed construction of a triplex. Minor variances are the lot front, minimum lot frontage, minimum exterior side yard setback for dwelling, and minimum number of parking spaces. The staff report before us has no recommended conditions, and they are recommending approval. Marina, are you?
Yes, that's me.
Hi.
I'm
Did you want to speak?
Marina. Yeah, I'm Marina Fensham from Think Giraffe Design, representing the client. And I thank staff for their hard work with us. We went through some editing to get to a point where we all agree, on the parameters of this project.
Great. So obviously, since the report is for approval, you're looking forward to seeing how this motion goes.
Yeah.
Any Gamal, you've been trying to get my attention.
I was gonna put a motion if no one.
This is any other questions from committee members?
No.
Nope. This is your time to shine.
All right. Following consideration of all written and oral presentations, I want to move variance applications A68/23 as presented in the notice of hearing be approved as the variances are minor in nature, appropriate and desirable for the use of land, and are in keeping with the general intent of the official plan and the zoning bylaw.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All those in favor of the hold on. This is the best part. All those in favor of the motion, show of hands. Great. Now I can say congratulations. Your application has been approved unanimously.
Thank you, and thank you to Madeleine Ferco. She worked very hard on this. So.
Thank you so much. Okay. Enjoy your evening.
Bye bye.
So I jumped ahead. 710 Niagara Street. Am I right? Yeah, right. Good. This is these are minor variance to facilitate the construction of a new interior accessory dwelling unit, which will be located in the basement of the subject property. Staff report recommends approval. We do have a registered speaker. There were no received comments, and the registered speaker happens to be the owner. So we'll let the agent, Kelvin, talk to us first, and then we'll see if Matthew has anything to offer. Or Matthew, are you here in place of Kelvin? Is there a Kelvin?
It's.
I'm here in place of Calvin.
All right. Matthew.
But no, I have nothing to add. I appreciate the staff recommendations and. That's about it.
All right. Super. Anybody want to add another motion to their sum total? Carrie?
I can do that. Following consideration of all written and oral presentations, I move that variance A95 as presented in the notice of hearing be approved as a variance is minor in nature, appropriate and desirable for the use of the land, and is in keeping with the general intent of the official plan and zoning bylaw.
Thank you. All those in favor of the motion, show of hands, please. To the applicant, your application has been approved unanimously. Thank you.
Thank you.
That brings us to the, well, not the final item on our agenda, new applications. So this is address 2032 First Street. The situation here is a minor variance with respect to an increase in outdoor storage permitted for industrial building on the subject land. So this is kind of sort of like the other one of our other applications. So we have a 10% maximum gross floor area coverage, and there's a proposed 28.5 for this project, to accommodate this project. Staff report recommends approval. And Corby, are you be speaking this application?
Corby's on holidays this week, so it's Jeff.
I'll take a Jeff instead of a Corby. That's fine. I'm not fussy.
I really don't have much to add there, so it's
good
on what the staff report said.
Excellent. There's nothing wrong with a little bit brevity this late in the evening. Any questions of the committee members to anybody regarding this?
Jeff, what firm
No.
are you with?
Carrie?
What firm are you with, Jeff? Doesn't say.
SPH Engineering.
Gotcha.
Oh, nice. What's your shoe size? I don't want to know. Great. So motion, please, from Jamal. Jamal, thank you.
All right. Following consideration of all written oral presentations, I move that variance applications A95/23 as presented in the notice of hearing be approved, as the variances are minor in nature, appropriate and desirable for the land, for the use of the land, and are in keeping with the general intent of the official plan and the zoning bylaw.
Discussion, all those in favor, or is that all those in favor? No. Carrie, do you have a comment?
Through you to Charlotte. Charlotte, in terms of outside storage, when you have Quonset huts, is that considered to be outside storage?
Through the chair, I guess we'd have to see maybe a drawing of exactly what that looked like. Generally, it's uncovered storage areas. If the nature of a storage container is that it in itself looks like something that's being stored, maybe that would be considered outdoor storage. If it's more of a building, it would probably be considered an accessory structure or warehouse or something like that.
Thank you.
No problem.
You guys asking questions or are we voting? David?
I believe I heard Jim say 95, A9523, and it's 96.
That's correct.
And while everyone is watching.
I'm going to amend that to A95.
No, A96.
A96, yeah, from
Sorry,
A95 to 96. Great, thank you. All those in favor? All those opposed? Oh, okay, Tom, you're in on the favor, right? Yeah, okay.
Yes.
So the applicant, your application's been approved unanimously. Thank you. Now we're on to new or other business, right?
Yes.
This is respect to it.
That was already deferred. Yeah.
Yeah.
So there is none.
Right. Thank you.
You're welcome.
The date of the next meeting is Wednesday, October 11th. Carrie Leask.
Just wondering if everybody on the committee is privy to the existence of this stcatharines.civicnet.net, where all the files are very nicely, and I must commend staff, set forth with an index on the side so you can quick reference. Is everybody aware of that?
Certainly.
Pardon?
I was not aware of that.
I just downloaded from the email with the Dropbox links, which is a little bit cumbersome switching back and forth.
That's what I do as well.
So
Same as
St.
Tom.
Catharines just write it down. St. Catharines .civicnet or civicweb.net /file pro. And that should get you into a directory of the Committee of Adjustment.
Yeah. Just File Pro has an error. Is there an additional?
I can send the link to everybody.
That'd be
Okay.
great, Jane. Thank you.
Perfect, thank you.
Okay, I think
Jane,
it's File Pro.
Sorry, so Jane will send a link, but the idea is this is a public meeting, that's public information, so this is not exclusive to us. This is public access. Is that correct, Jane?
That is true. It is public
Okay, so-
access. Yeah.
I concur with Carrie. It is the most comprehensive single file that outlines all. It can't be used alone. You still need the other, but it's the one that I've been referring to all evening, and it helps a lot to have it all in one spot. I do like it as well.
And so if you hit the bullets, there's several bullets along the left-hand side with an index, so you could quick reference.
The page marks, the page breaks, but you still, but what is sent, the applications that are sent to us are still required. It has all the drawings and the application itself and so on.
Right.
Correct.
So the context is still in what is emailed to us individually. This is a summary, and I use both those files. I have in my Adobe, both those files are open. I go back and forth to get the information that I need, but it's only two files that are open. So yes, Jane. So thanks, Carrie. Jane, look forward to receiving that. Next meeting is Wednesday, October 11th, at 5 o'clock. Motion to adjourn, or David, do you have yet another question? Motion to adjourn, David, thank you.
No, I'll give you a motion to adjourn as soon as I ask my question.
Oh, you have a question, okay.
Are we in person in October for sure, or don't know?
I haven't heard this.
That I don't know
Okay.
just yet. Sorry.
Motion to adjourn.
Motion accepted, thanks. We'll find out later.